Well, like one of the things we were talking about was the Mayan calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mayan calendar ended in 2012. Well, I guess there's now an argument.
Yeah.
Some scholars say that it ended in 2012. Some people are saying that it ended in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone agrees that the Mayans never prophesized the end of the world.
Right. Right. Yeah.
They just had a calendar which just ended at some
right.
point.
Yeah.
I mean, if you build a society and you create a calendar system and it goes on for thousands of years, wouldn't you just be like,
Yeah, right.
that's good enough for right now,
exactly.
you know? We just need a way to keep track of the days.
Right.
And we're recording.
How's it going today?
It's going good.
Good, good.
We were having an off-camera discussion about actually about many things.
Yeah.
But we were talking about the end of the world. Then we started talking about doomsday cults, and then we started talking about all the different events that have happened, and then events that were predicted to happen. What do you think of all of that?
Yes. So, I don't know. Doomsday stuff is it's interesting. You know, for the fact that you know, there's been you know, a lot, like, you know, this earth has been here for a long time. You know, and there's things that have happened, you know.
This earth or the earth? Are
This
you
earth.
letting it out of the bag that this is actually the second dimension that we've lived in?
Yeah. Yeah, we won't go into
That's
that
a joke, by the way.
To you, that's a joke.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, this planet's been here for a long time, and you know, there's things that have happened, and you know, we've done our best to learn that history and record that. But you know, there's still a lot that we don't know, obviously, because we weren't there, and you know, there could just be some things that we missed in collecting our data.
Well, like one of the things we were talking about was the Mayan calendar. And the Mayan calendar ended in 2012. Well, I guess there's now an argument.
Yeah.
Some scholars say that it ended in 2012. Some people are saying that it ended in 2020. But everyone agrees that the Mayans never prophesized the end of the world.
Right, right, yeah.
They just had a calendar which just ended at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, if you build a society and you create a calendar system and it goes on for thousands of years, wouldn't you just be like,
Yeah, right.
that's good enough for right now,
exactly.
you know? We just need a way to keep track of the days.
Right, right.
What's the difference?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you would want your society to go on for all those years, you know, so you can just be like, you know, maybe 3 years before the end of your calendar, you're like, that's when I'll extend it, or somebody, maybe I won't be here, but somebody will extend it then.
Right.
You know.
Or maybe you come up with a better way of keeping track of time.
Right, right.
But then, what would we call it? Pop culture, our, well, I want to say our society, but it was kind of like at least a decent chunk of the world. Although I think it's mainly fixated in Western civilization.
Right.
Where we started extrapolating that the end of the calendar meant the end of the world.
Correct.
Even though that's not what the creators of the calendar said.
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe they did say it, but they didn't write it down for us to find that.
Yeah, and you know, and I didn't research that very much to see if there was maybe some speculation out there, like people who saying, you know, hold on, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the end of the world. Like, how do we know that, you know, maybe they just didn't foresee the calendar, or, you know, just something rational, like, you know, they just didn't go beyond that point, you know. So I don't know if there was some talk about people then, like, trying to bring people down, like, hey, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. That's just as far as their calendar went to for whatever reason. That doesn't mean it's the end.
Right. But then and I have a little bit of a problem when popular media plays into this. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I watch tons of things that are fiction.
Yeah, right.
But I'm worried when it's something that people believe in, and then, you know, like mainstream media is like, oh, hey, let's make some money off of this. And I think, let's not feed into this. But like, just thinking of like some of the ways that it bled over into like films and things like that.
Yeah.
There was the movie 2012.
Right. Yeah. Which was all about that because, so I don't know the entire 2012 prophecy, but in that movie, there was, oh man, I can't remember. It was just a bunch of natural disasters.
Yes.
You know, yeah.
It was basically like Armageddon.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
Armageddon, as far as like the Bible tells it, like everything just basically comes apart.
Right. Okay, so hold on. So I want to backtrack just for a second.
Okay.
Just to get some more context. So, okay, so if the news media plays a part in some of this, so what is their benefit to creating hysteria? Would it just be money, or
Well,
like because how
I
would
think
that,
once people get scared, they keep watching,
yeah.
and so it's ratings.
Okay, so then
And so yeah, it's money.
So how does that translate to money then? Because what is that? Is that ad revenue? Is that okay? So in just their system of tracking, like how many viewers?
Yeah, it's basically like if you have one television show that has like, let's say, 1 million people watch it, just for argument's sake, and then you've got another television show where 2 million people watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know how ads work in Hollywood, but Hollywood is the generic term for mainstream media. But I would guess that the one that gets double the amount gets a lot more money than the other one because you're reaching more people.
Right.
You know,
right? Okay. And I'm only was asking that to clarify because a lot of times, like we'll say, mainstream media, as kind of like as not as a boogeyman, but like I don't know, just as the entity that's kind of like pushing the hysteria type of thing.
right?
Okay. So with all that out of the way, if mainstream media is kind of pushing the end of the world narrative,
Right.
and people are watching, I'm sure that there has to be someone on the side that's like, yeah, even though we're getting all this money in these ratings or we're getting all this viewership.
Are you talking about the guy with the conscience?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got to be like, hey, listen, this is just a little bit too much hysteria. Like, we don't need all this. Because it could be something on the back end. Like,
I mean, that might be the case, but the other thing is we're not talking about a little bit of money. We're talking about a lot of money. Well, what about the movie 2012 or The Prophecy? Do you believe in any of that?
no,
I mean, we're obviously way past 2012.
Yeah, right.
But when you hear things like that, do you think to yourself, uh-oh?
No. I think because I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe because there's so much hysteria. And then when you actually find out, like, it's, when someone says like, oh, the Mayan calendar predicted, well, then that's kind of like, I don't know. It just doesn't stick with me very well that, this calendar predicted, how many years ago did they predict that
Thousands.
this day would be the end of the world? It's like.
So that's not something that you believe in or can get behind?
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
Listen,
I know what you're trying to do.
Like vampires?
I know what you're trying to do here. Listen.
Okay. We're not going to go down that route. All right. But what about the movie The Day After Tomorrow, which kind of talks about a catastrophic event that happens that violently alters our climate. Just a couple of years ago, we experienced several polar vortexes that came down. And I remember I was in Chicago. I had to work for the day. And when I went out to my car, it was like -30 one day. And then there were winds, and they said it feels like -40.
Yeah.
And I remember the inside of my nose hurt through breathing, and I could feel like almost like crusty, like, well, it must have been ice build up like around the edge of my eyes, and it kind of hurt to breathe, and I was really worried that like I might damage my car. So I remember I started it and then I sat in it and just let it slowly warm up. Before I ever moved it, and I don't even know if that was the best move. I just thought get the oil warmed up, but it was bad. I had ice that actually formed on the inside of my windows, and that was kind of like a small taste of what they were talking about. But if the event was bigger and harsher, and the temperatures dipped even further below, I mean, I know we have technology that can resist those levels of temperatures, like stuff that we send to like Antarctica and things like that. But to people that aren't prepared for that, who don't have homes built with that technology or don't have things, I mean, it could cause maybe not an end of the world scenario, but a real big problem.
And, you know, and I think another thing with that is that, you know, Chicago is a place that's known for having harsh winters. So you're going to run into people and you're going to run into scenarios where the talk is, this is just a winter. Like, you know, this is, you know, maybe it's colder than usual, but this is just a regular, for so to speak, regular winter in Chicago or in other parts of the country that experience winter. Like this is just, this is just average type of thing. Like this is what winter is supposed to be. It's supposed to be cold. It's supposed to get to these, so, you know, I feel like with, you know, movies like The Day After Tomorrow, which it was a good movie, you know.
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah. And, so I don't know. I think that mainly it was big for entertainment purposes.
Oh, sure. It's definitely.
I don't think that people walked away with it like, you know, with a sense of urgency, like, you know, maybe I should do something. So if there's something I can do that this doesn't happen in my lifetime.
Well, what about other movies that predict the end? Is there anything that stood out to you?
Yeah. So there was something I wanted to talk about before because there was one movie that I did want to talk about that was related to another topic. I'm sorry. I led you down the wrong course. No, that's fine. Because I know that you wanted to talk about like the KT event, or I'm sorry, the Carrington event.
Oh, the Carrington event? Yeah. Or wait, were we talking about the electromagnetic storm or what killed? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't you tell us about the movie you're talking about, and then we can talk about that.
All right. So this movie was called Knowing with Nicolas Cage. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I don't think I've seen this.
No. Okay. So this movie was done in 2009.
Okay.
And I'm sorry for anybody watching. There's going to be some spoilers in this, but it's it's 2009. I mean, if you haven't seen it by now, it's
14 years later. Yeah.
So in this movie, Nicolas Cage has a son who's 12 years old or something. He's in like or maybe younger than that, but you know, he's in school, and the school that he goes to had this they had kind of like a groundbreaking ceremony. Like they did this thing where I can't think of the term now, but they put something in the ground, and then the school in 50 years would like dig it up and
like a time capsule.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Capsule, right. So all the students in the school or in this one class like wrote something down or put something in the time capsule, and then in 50 years, all the the newer kids each got one item that was in there. So the son who was Nicolas Cage's son got this a piece of paper, and this girl, she was having visions, but she wrote down like all these dates. The paper ended up being like a bunch of natural disasters or disasters that killed a bunch of people. And then at the end of it, so it was all these numbers and everything was coordinated to dates and longitude and latitude. And then at the end, it said EE. And they were like, we don't know what that means.
Extinction event?
No, it was actually meant everyone else. Like, but pretty much, yeah, an extinction event.
I was just thinking what we were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm thinking EE.
So the extinction event was a solar flare that pretty much destroyed the Earth. It was the end of the Earth. And then the other aspect to this movie was there was like some aliens kind of that came down and were like trying to take all of the children to a safe place. Which, it was a weird little aspect to it, but it had this kind of like, it had this like biblical aspect to it, because it was kind of like these aliens were kind of like getting an ark type of thing.
Were they hiding in the tail of the Hale-Bopp comet?
No.
Okay.
They were like just gathering. I don't know. You had to be so you couldn't be like older than 12 or whatever, but it didn't say it in the movie, but you could tell they were just gathering up all the kids.
Let's just back up for a second here. So they opened a time capsule. They gave all the kids items.
Yeah.
And then one of the kids started predicting things like events and like time and places, like coordinates.
Right.
And they were given that ability through the item they got from the time capsule?
No. So sorry. So I didn't describe it.
Okay. I got a little confused there.
So in the class, like 50 years earlier, there was one girl who she was visited by something. She was hearing voices, and she couldn't help herself, but she was like writing all these, dates down. Like it just looked like she was writing a bunch of numbers.
Oh, all of this was predicted by somebody who added something to the time capsule.
Yes, right.
Okay, not one of the kids that received something. Right. Okay.
Yeah, but in the 50 years later, when they took items out, that was the one thing that was in there. That was one of the things that was in the time capsule. Was her paper where she was writing down all these, dates, and whatever. Like I said, it just looked like a bunch of numbers, but it was like a date, how many people were killed, and then the longitude and latitude.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. So it was an interesting movie. And like I said, the reason I wanted to talk about this as far as like...
because of the Carrington event.
Correct. Right.
Carrington event.
Yes.
I'm going to say that wrong. Yeah. I don't know why that is a tongue twister for me, but it seems to be. The Carrington event. Yes. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Carrington.
Okay. We were kind of talking about this, and this is like kind of my wheelhouse a little bit, because it's a weird sciencey phenomenon that did something that hopefully we don't see again. We've seen in small amounts, but the odd thing about this one was that how great and strong and powerful it was.
Right.
So it's basically, we believe it was started by a coronal mass ejection. So basically a big like sun flare kind of thing, but it created like a solar storm that hit Earth, and it screwed with all kinds of stuff. And this is not just something that like happens right away. It went on for months, and the peak of it seemed to be either the 1st or the 2nd in September in 1859. One of the things it did was, like the Northern Lights. Well, basically, you can normally only see them during a certain part of the year in the far in the northern sky. I think we're here in Michigan. At this level, you can see them once in a while if they're very strong, but normally you can't. During the event, you could see them anywhere on the planet. Yeah, which is just
that's insane.
Massively screwed up.
Right.
But the other thing is there's all kinds of reports of like, I want to call them like telegraph operator booths or buildings or whatever. But basically, around this point is when we were really using this technology, and we had strung wires all over the place. And a large solar storm is going to create a massive like magnetic disturbance. And it basically caused fires and people to get shocked and electrocuted. And There was even a story where an operator in Boston was talking to an operator in, I believe it was like Portland, Maine.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, to run the telegraph, they would connect batteries up to run for the power.
Mm-hmm.
Both sides disconnected their batteries, and the telegraph still operated. They said it was a little intermittent.
Oh, wow.
And power seemed to fluctuate, but it did not stop. And they were getting better results with their batteries disconnected, because with their batteries connected, they were overloading the circuits, and they were having issues with like insulators and equipment and their magnets. They were just being overpowered, and things were getting forced on and stuck on, and they couldn't shut things down. And their communications were getting like what would you call it? Like muddled almost. Like they weren't coming through clearly. Just imagine if something like that happened today.
Oh, yes.
Because back then, what our most advanced technology, at least electronically, or at least electronic technology, was probably the telegraph.
Right.
And it got screwed up.
Yeah.
And nowadays, everything operates off of technology.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we can't do anything. I mean, first of all, we're all glued to our phones.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
and the communication between them, that would get taken down. Not to mention, none of us seem to be able to survive without electricity. That for sure would get annihilated. The power grid would fail. I mean, there are ways to safeguard against some of this stuff. Like the military has some things that are hardened for like an electromagnetic pulse that you can get from like detonating a nuclear weapon in the atmosphere. So I would think that some of those types of things would survive, but our technology that's not hardened would definitely not survive. I was reading on one of these websites that they said if the event that happened in 1859, the Carrington event, happened now in modern days, just in the United States, it would cause between $600 billion and $1.2 trillion worth of damage just to the United States.
Oh, wow. That is crazy.
I mean, because if you think like not only like normal commerce could be shut down and transportation and shipping and all of that.
True, yeah.
Because, I mean, even if all the cars run on gas,
Yeah.
the lights are out, the bridges are out. You know, we can't raise and lower drawbridges and things like that. And then communication down, so you know you can't communicate. And then past that, like financial markets would be out. It would be
that would be huge.
I mean, it would be an end of the world, not in the fact like an Armageddon that would just we'd all die.
Yeah.
But it would be devastating.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. Because that's not like that's not a situation where it's like power's out, you gotta wait a few hours and power comes back on. Like those things are done.
Well, it would. A lot of stuff would be damaged very badly. It's not like we wouldn't be able to rebuild, but the issue is while we're trying to repair and rebuild things, a lot of what we think is normal right now will just have to be put on the side for us just to survive long enough to make it through to the other side.
Yeah.
And during that, I mean, we saw disruptions and stuff during the pandemic that caused prices and things to rise and kind of screwed with global markets. An event like this would be way worse.
Oh yeah. And even though we don't really experience like solar flares like that, but that could be something that would, that could just shut us down. That's not even like destroying people or property, I mean like a direct hit or something. That's just, goes to like the heart of what we do.
I mean, this event took place over over months.
Yeah.
So if something like that happened right now, it's not even like in the event of like a man-made destruction, if we did something, it would be generally like a war. It would be more directed into one area, but this would just blast the entire planet. So it's funny that you said you wanted to connect knowing to the quarantine event, because the thing I was thinking of when we were talking about movies was the movie Armageddon.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of a world ender movie. And when we say world ender, I don't think in Armageddon they said the planet was not going to exist. They said that we would go extinct.
Yeah, right.
And, there would probably be a point in time where life would continue and then flourish again. But for a while, we'd really be pushed down to, a few species that survived, whether it's microbes or plants, or just maybe a select portion of life.
Right.
And this has happened before. And the reason why I was drawing your tie between the Carrington event and knowing is because Armageddon just kind of reminded me of the KT event. Which, by the way, the KT event was a massive extinction that happened where 75% of life on Earth went extinct all in one shot. Now, it didn't happen like in seconds. Something happened to Earth and 75% of everything died. And the most famous thing that died is the dinosaurs. But there was a lot of other things that passed away. But it wasn't just death and destruction and no upswing. Normally things flourish when they have like an abundance of something. So like a lot of the massive organisms or living things on the planet that no longer exist, or maybe exist in a form that's much smaller because they evolved into something smaller, was because they didn't have an abundance to live off of. Well, when 75% of everything dies on the planet, there's a lot more other stuff that there's not as much competition for things. There's not as much predators. There's not as many things that are keeping something down. So it kind of allowed life to flourish again, and actually made way for a lot of evolution, because there was a lot of resources on Earth that weren't being taken advantage of, and some of these other creatures that normally wouldn't be able to access those things evolved into things that could access them. And one thing that really took off was mammals. I'm kind of happy about that, because we're mammals. And so we might not have existed if 75% of everything didn't perish at one point.
Right. Now, to back you up a little bit, did you feel you're going to get any pushback because you mentioned the dinosaurs? There's a good amount of people out there who feel like, who may want to debunk this whole event, but also
you're talking about the people who are making comments on our videos.
Well, not necessarily, not just but there could be a separate group of people who are like, dinosaurs. What are you talking about?
Now I'm just thinking about the Rick and Morty we talked about the other week, where dinosaurs came back, and they're like, dinosaurs are back. And they're like, apes are hairless. Do I fear that? No. I don't care. In fact, I welcome everyone to make as many comments as possible. We have a good time reading them.
Okay.
And a good time for the most part interacting with you guys. It's kind of a massive event, and the reason why I'm tying this to Armageddon, is because we're not 100% sure what caused the initial piece. We know what killed everything. What killed everything was the climate change, but drastically, and not like how we talk about climate change today. Like, oh, we should all be taking care of everything better, and I mean we should, but No, this was like an external thing, something, or maybe not an external thing, but a rare event that then caused our entire planet's climate to change pretty rapidly. And nothing, or I shouldn't say nothing, only 25% survived. For the longest time, there was two big main theories. One was either a supervolcano. And by supervolcano, I mean like Yellowstone National Park.
Right, something super huge.
Yes. But there really isn't any evidence of that. But it would be something on the order of that that it would take to do this level of devastation, which we can see the aftermath of the devastation, but we're not sure which caused it. The other thing that they were thinking along, if it wasn't a supervolcano, it could have been many volcanoes erupting all at the same time. And just putting tons of stuff into the atmosphere, which would darken the skies, would change our climate, would do a lot of things. It would kill, as soon as you start to kill things in the food chain, other things start dying that relied on those things.
Right.
And then the other main theory is that it was a giant asteroid, which I guess they didn't have Bruce Willis and Steve Buscemi to right up there with nuclear weapons.
Yeah, they would have saved the day for sure.
And I believe the event, or the crater that they believe it happened, that caused this, is around the Yucatan Peninsula. And it's partially underwater, but with modern technology and the fact that we can like scan for things with radar and sonar and stuff, it's pretty big. So, I mean, we know something hit us because we can see the aftermath of it, and it would be something of that size that could do this. So I guess for right now, we don't know for sure, but what we do know for sure is when we take ice samples or rock core samples or sediment samples from all over the world, there is a line where anywhere on the planet you go, you can see that at this time period, there was a lot of stuff coming out of the sky. And then we also know from the fossil record that there was 75% of other things that existed that we don't see anymore. So
Fossils. What's that?
So it's like you're just trying to stir up trouble here. Look, dinosaurs existed. We have proof. And not like feelings. I mean like physical things.
Listen, are you sure that those dinosaur bones were put together properly?
You know what? No. No, I'm not. In fact, we already know some of the things that we believe existed didn't. But it's also, I mean, how do I say this? You're really stirring me up. You know, we can date the things that they're stuck in. We can't date them because they've been turned to stone. They've been like petrified. They're you can't, but you can date the things around them that they're stuck in. And so we know when they came back, when they were from, and also you can tell from the layer of dirt that they're in, when that layer was from. Yeah, they existed, but they don't anymore because of this event. And this event is kind of like, I mean, we're getting better with our technology. And I believe if we had enough warning, like let's say we had, if we knew, like big warning, let's say we knew 50 years, I think we could do something about it.
Oh yeah, if we knew we were going to have a catastrophic event.
Well, no, I'm sorry, I'm narrowing down on asteroid, the movie.
Okay, okay. But we knew it would happen in 50 years.
Yeah, I think we could band together and do something about it. And the trick with stuff in space is nudging it. If you can just move it a little bit over time, that will be a lot. The issue is, I think right now, that we don't see most stuff out in space. So we could get cosmically sucker punched,
Oh yeah.
where we're looking over there and then something comes from over there.
Yeah.
And we don't, right now we're looking for massive stuff like extinction levels, like this event kind of stuff.
Right.
So there's also a lot of like smaller and mid-sized stuff that we're missing. But as our technology gets better, we're looking at more and more of this stuff. So hopefully we would catch something.
Right.
But as of right now, I don't know if we're 100%. Like if somebody said it's going to hit us in 10 years,
Well,
I don't know. It depends on how big it is. We might be able to do something about it.
Yeah. What it sounds like is that you're saying that we need to like probably get a base on the moon to help us see a little bit further.
That or having some humans on another planet like Mars.
Yeah.
So if Earth gets cosmically sucker punched.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, if we had like some type of a base on the moon that we could like launch weapons from, where we could like, so say if we knew there was some type of a giant asteroid, we could use a laser and shoot it to 1,000,000 pieces.
Well, you know what? Actually, I thought you were going to say a missile to blow it up.
Yeah, no.
Which I think that would have a very small effect on it. I think what we'd want to do is
sound waves.
Is nudge it. Well, sound doesn't travel in space because space is most of it is like a vacuum. But your laser idea isn't actually that far off.
Yeah.
Because if we could create a powerful enough laser and we aimed it at the exact same part of, or maybe not even the exact same part, but at the asteroid, we could vaporize part of the asteroid with extreme heat, which would cause a little bit of off-gassing. And it would be like a little rocket that would just punch off of one side. And if you just keep doing that over time, you'll slowly nudge it away.
Yeah.
Because for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. And so if we just pushed a little off that way, a little bit will move that way, and then a little bit more and a little bit more. And we just have to keep it up.
Okay.
But the other idea would be like a large solar sail. We could construct something like that and have it push, or we could have an engine that would run for a long period of time, like like ion engines kind of run for a longer period of time, but probably not powerful long enough. But the other thing we could do is we could take something smaller that we know we could move and slam it into it.
Yeah.
like if you've got just for argument's sake, an asteroid that's like the size of I don't know, a house. Let's just say we could definitely move that. But let's just say for argument's sake. Yeah. And then you had a second one that was the size of a car, but you weren't able to move the house size one, but you were able to move the car size one. Just get it to bump it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it might have a big enough impact that over a long enough period of time, if we had enough warning, then by the time it was supposed to hit us, it might have moved.
Yeah.
But I don't think. I mean, the movie itself. The movie itself. Like they said in the movie, they said if you just exploded a nuclear weapon on the outside, it wouldn't be enough. Then they also said that they had to have oil drillers to drill down and put the bomb inside, and then it'll split it, and hopefully the two halves will go past. I don't know. I don't think any of that would work. I think that was for Hollywood. Yeah. But I did enjoy the part where Steve Buscemi was going all crazy, and he sat on top of the nucler weapon, and they told him to get the hell off of there. And he said, "Sorry, brother, I just wanted to feel the power between my legs."
That was your favorite part, huh?
That was my favorite part, yeah.
It feels like it would take longer for us to do something like that, to have like a moon base and be prepared, for something like that. Because it feels like we been doing those things for 50 years, pushing it.
We haven't, but we had the DART missions from NASA, which redirected a smaller asteroid, and we did that by slamming the spacecraft into it.
Yeah,
but it wasn't very big. It'd be enough to do some damage, but and then the other thing is you know, we're waiting over time to see, how do I say this? The smallest reaction right now will add up to something later, bigger later on. You know,
Right.
you get it moving a couple inches today, 5 years down the road, it's a mile off course, and then 10 years down the road, it's 20 miles off course or something. You know,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, we haven't done a lot of those things. I think the biggest problem is we don't have a full view of everything yet.
Yeah.
But I think we're working on it.
Yeah. It feels like,
And we're running tests like the DART missions.
yeah. It feels like whenever we think about like something hitting the Earth, like an asteroid hitting the Earth, like the picture I get, that it feels like we're thinking about Earth as if Earth is like up against a wall, so we could only be hit from like one direction. And it feels like, if you can just picture this, I hope I'm making some sense, because like, I mean, I know just what it seems like is that like, so we have like the Earth, and we have the moon, and then anything else that's coming at us is coming at us like we'll pass the moon and hit the Earth like we're backed up against something. You know what I'm saying?
It's true. You know, the moon does take some blows for us.
Yeah.
And it shows because we have an atmosphere, so our planet Earth gets resurfaced.
Yeah.
Or the evidence gets worn down through like erosion and things. But the moon doesn't have any of that, so we can just look up and see all of those hits it took, we could have been taking. And it's good that it's, hey, we're neighbors. You should help out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a smaller neighbor and it's fighting our battles.
Yeah. But the whole thing just kind of made me think of, there are so many times where we believe maybe not a world-ending event, but a massive event that'll uproot our society or way of life or whatever. I mean, the KT event actually caused things to go extinct, but the quarantine event just kind of screwed everything up. And if it happened today, it would be much more devastating than it was before. But for most, life would go on. I'm not saying to say everyone's going to survive something like that.
Right.
But we make a big deal about just our life being impacted in any way. I mean, we were both in our 20s for, or at least the beginning, for Y2K.
Oh yeah.
And just the news coverage on that, and just how our society dealt with it.
Yep.
It was unbelievable. I mean, there was a lot of over preparation. And I felt like sort of like when the pandemic happened and then nobody could find toilet paper.
Yeah.
It's because everyone ran out and bought all the freaking toilet paper.
Right.
And when you have a run on something, you screw it up for everyone else.
Yeah.
If we all would have just went about our business and bought toilet paper at the normal rate that we buy toilet paper at, there wouldn't have been an issue. But people were doing that around Y2K.
Yeah.
And as a person that believes in science, and I'm kind of big into technology, and one of my first IT jobs was actually kind of like hired as relief for all the Y2K stuff, because they had all these extra projects to patch things and to take care of things. It was really irritating the crap out of me when people were running around like, oh, we better have 6 months of food and better have this and better have that. And I remember yelling at a couple of my friends, like, if I have to pay $1 more for bread, I'm going to be personally pissed off at you. Stop with the hysteria.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember you'd hear on the news that, oh, well, the computers aren't going to be able to handle it, and the power is going to go out, and then there's going to be a systemic breakdown, and then there isn't going to be any like shipping slowdowns, and then nobody's going to be able to get food.
Yeah.
And I remember like my parents, like one of the tricks they used to do, because they lived in a very rural area, is if they knew a big storm was coming, they would fill, they had a bathtub, they'd fill the bathtub up with water. And then if you needed to like flush the toilet or something, you could just get a bucket and go get some water from the bathtub and pour it in the toilet. And so I remember them telling me they're filling up the bathtub and stuff. And I'm just like, everyone stop. We've known about this for years.
Yeah.
It's on the news. It's not like anyone's being caught off guard. And for 99% of everything, it was patched and taken care of.
Right.
Nothing stopped.
Yeah.
Except for a couple little tiny things, but we just moved forward. The next day, the power did not go out. There was no riots.
Yeah. I don't think I knew anyone who took some drastic measures because they thought, you know, this was going to be something major. Most of the people, I mean, at the time of my age, I think it was, we all mocked it, you know, and thought that it was funny and didn't think anything was going to happen. I'm sure for you know, for some, it was like, you know, kind of on the fence, you know, like I'm not sure, but I don't know. It feels like I didn't know anyone who took it serious and were like stockpiling.
Most of my friends were not taking it seriously, which let's just stop the hysteria. Like the pandemic. Nobody needed to stock up for like 6 months worth of toilet paper. Buy your normal amount.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I know that there were people who were seriously freaking out and thinking that this was it. But and then and what's funny is that I mean we've I mean it could be almost a situation where it's like the boy who cried wolf, you know, because we've had quite a few you know, disasters that didn't happen.
And I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay attention to these things and we shouldn't you know, be serious about them. I mean, the whole reason why nothing really happened during Y2K is because we took it seriously. It was a problem we created and a problem we had to solve, and we had a deadline. But the power didn't go off. You could still get gas at the gas pump. In fact, I just remember watching something recently where they were talking about what actually failed, and there were some like older military things that read, I think it read like 1900 or something, and some things that had to be reset. But for the most part, everything was fine. But just kind of like what you were talking about there, like, you know, how many times this happens to us. It makes me think about, there are groups that predict things like the end of the world. And they constantly have an excuse. First of all, the world hasn't ended. We're all still here. So they constantly have an excuse when, you know, their date isn't correct. And when their date isn't correct, it doesn't seem to slow them down to make yet another prediction. Right. You know, be it for, mostly it's religious reasons. Although there's been some, well, see, the problem is I want to say there were some, there's some that like believe in UFOs and things like that. And they believe in the end of the world, but wouldn't that be kind of a religion?
Yeah, I guess so. I think that most of them are kind of like a, you know, religious backing type.
Right. And a lot of them, I think, get, at least in my book, cult status. And I would say, and let me be real clear about this. I'm not saying all religion is a cult. That's not what I'm saying. But there are particular groups that have a level of control over their, would you call them patrons, their followers, their flock.
All those.
I believe the actual technical term is high control group. I think where I personally draw the line is we've talked about this before. Like when I was younger, there were several churches that I went to. One of them was a Baptist church. They had a bunch of youth groups and things like that. And my friends and I would go and we would join the different groups. And, you know, if I said, oh, I have a friend, but they're not religious. I don't think anyone would care.
Yeah.
They might say something like, oh, well, have you tried to save them? But really past that, they're just like, well, are they a good person? Okay, cool.
Right.
But some of these groups restrict who you can see and where you can go and really try to self-isolate themselves. Some of them predict the end of the world.
Yeah.
And when they're wrong, they basically just say how, you know, it wasn't who's ever in charge's fault. It was their mistake. You know, that they made a mistake, but the guy at the top,
Right.
he's still right.
Yeah.
And then at some point in the future, the guy at the top shoots out
probably
another day.
Right.
And then everyone's still gun-ho. And since they're so isolated, they don't realize that the rest of us are like, well, you were wrong the last 5 times.
Right.
Why are you still following them? And why are you still believing in them?
Yeah. 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 It's tough because, especially like, you know, on the outside, you know, with a lot of those predictions, you know, and we're like, yeah, they've been wrong how many times? And, you know, how do you have like faith in the next date?
And it's not like we're discussing like one in particular. We're saying in general.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even right now in modern times, I can think of like 4 or 5.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm not going to call out by name.
Yeah, no, but
these are modern things that people believe in, and they call them their religion.
Yeah.
But from the outside, it looks a little like, wait a second.
Yeah. Yeah, because, it does end up feeling like a cult because, like.
You're just saying yeah a lot.
Yeah, I am saying yeah.
I know we're both trying to be very careful here and
right.
Where we tread and step. But there's just throughout history, there's been groups that have predicted the end of the world. And my problem is if you're just continually wrong.
Yeah. And then I think my other problem would be the groups that are entice people to like harm themselves because it's the end of the world type of thing, you know, or, you know, this is what they have to do because the world's going to end. For them to go to the next level, they have to do this.
Both of these sets of groups I have a problem with.
Yeah.
I think the world would be better off if those types of groups didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think the issue is it kind of goes to who we are as human beings. I think, you know, we truly are like pack animals, like group animals. Like we need to be around each other. We need to be accepted by the group.
Right.
And I think the issue is like some people just don't fit into what we would probably call like mainstream society in that group. And they find some like-minded people.
Right.
And they think, wow, I could belong.
Yeah.
And I could be like loved and like have like friends.
Yeah, exactly.
But then they isolate themselves to the point where they don't understand that their actions might not be best.
Yeah. It could turn out pretty sad and devastating if they go down that route.
My issue is like just like comparing like because I feel like a lot of times science and religion get mashed up as if it's a versus thing.
Oh yeah, true.
And they'll say things like, "Well, science isn't right all the time." That's the cool thing about science. At any moment, you can get a new piece of information and learn something new and change your direction and go, "Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
We never saw that before. We should. It's really this is what's going on." But when you have like a group that continually says, you know, this date is going to be the end of the world. Okay, that didn't happen. Now this date's going to be the end of the world. It's just like one side is constantly seeking knowledge and trying to better understand its environment. And the other side is just continually predicting something that is very obvious that's not going true. But yet people are still like, yeah, I think this is what I'm into. And I'm just like,
yeah.
You never belong to any of those groups?
Not any cults, no. No, I haven't been in any cults.
Neither did I. That I'm aware of, at least.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Unless it was so deep that I'm not aware.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah.
For all I know, everyone around me it could be a Truman Show style kind of thing where I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And recently, I have found a situation where I've been closer to cameras and microphones than I have been in the past.
Oh, okay. Well, that might be a clear sign that
But they're not even hiding them anymore. They're just
just in your face.
Yeah, they're just in my face.
Yeah.
I don't know. We were just kind of talking about how society talks about the end of the world and then actual events that almost ended us, maybe not the world as a whole, but like our portion or and then, you know, just because there is a group or groups, I should say, many that pick things that don't come true, doesn't mean that there isn't events that could happen to us, like an asteroid or a massive storm from space.
Oh, yeah.
Or something else that catches us off guard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's bound to happen one day. What's that phrase? Even a broken clock is right 2 times a day.
Yeah. I mean, it's happened in the past, and there is no proof that it won't happen again. Right. I think hopefully it won't happen, at least until we have advanced enough with our technology that we'll be able to do something about it, or at least move out of the way.
Yeah.
Even if that is like what happens if humanity or if humans are still around in 1 million years and we have the ability to fly all over the place, and then something is going to happen to Earth that even our technology at that time can't stop. Maybe we can just pick everybody up and go, hang out over here until this is over.
Yeah.
And then you guys can go back. It'll be a little bit more of a fixer-upper, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I had.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting conversation.
Yeah, it was. This is the kind of things I like to talk about.
Yeah.
A little morbid towards the end, but especially things like the Mayan calendar. The whole time I saw that in the news years ago, I was just like, "That's nobody's. Where are you guys just making this up?"
Yeah, yeah. That's it for now. Let us know what you think in the comments.
Yeah, definitely let us know if we've missed anything. As far as weird events or even events that were misconstrued into something else.
Right.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep. See ya.
Bye.